Okay, so we can get started if everybody is ready. I want to say good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Young, and I am the Executive Director of the 251 Club of Vermont. And so I want to officially call our annual meeting to order. Thank you for being here with us today. It is great to see so many familiar faces, catching up with members that I've gotten to know over the past few years, and then also welcoming some new members to the annual meeting the first time. So if you don't mind, if this is your first meeting, I would love just to see whose first meeting this is. Well, thank you. Well, welcome to the annual meeting. That's great. We also want to welcome those members who are joining us by CCTV, is live streaming our event today. So welcome to the members who are watching us online. And we're so glad that so many of you can be here today to join us, either in person, whether this is your 10th annual meeting, your first annual meeting, or watching online. Thank you. So this is actually our 68th annual meeting for the 251 Club. So this is number 68 for us. Since 1954, the club has existed to help bring together those who love adventure, discovery, and Vermont. The stories we hear from 251 Club of Vermont members, some which are shared in our newsletter, constantly remind me why so many of us take on this challenge. It isn't just the love of the journey, but it's the memories we create along the way. It's those places you find that you go back home and you let others know about. It's those inside jokes that you have created or cherished memories you end up having with family and friends. It's the opportunity to sometimes journey out on your own and with just your thoughts and Vermont's beauty to keep you company. It's the joy of seeing Vermont towns during all of the seasons, including spring, summer, fall, stick season, mud season, and of course winter, which we will talk more about with our speaker today. It's the people who you meet while out on a 251 Club visit and the places you would have never been to but for the club. This year, we heard from members for whom the 251 Club has been part of their lives for a long time. We heard from club members whose children grew up with the 251 Club, starting their quest when their youngest was 6 months old, and then they finished their quest when that same child was married, and they finished it with him and their new daughter-in-law. We also heard from members who found their parents' photo album from the 1980s, and they went through the photo album and they saw the old station wagon, and they could remember taking those trips during the 80s in that station wagon. This year, we have also welcomed several members with young children in tow who have started their quest to create family memories, and many out-of-staters who learned about the club from friends, family, or seeing us last year on CBS News Sunday morning. And then, of course, we also can't forget the four-legged companions that many of us have along the way. We hear from members who bring their dogs along with them, or even cats as well. It's always great to hear the stories from members as they work through their journeys and learn about the libraries and museums, restaurants, and general stores. But we also know that many of those businesses and organizations, as well as many of our members individually, were impacted by this summer's floods. Our hearts go out to those impacted by the floods. And we look forward to supporting those local communities and businesses in the years to come as we visit Vermont towns and cities. And as many of you know, our annual meeting has traditionally been held in Montpelier at Capitol Plaza and streamed by Orca. However, this year, the Capitol Plaza couldn't host due to the flood impacts. We were grateful to work with them to relocate to their sister property here at the Delta Hotels by Marriott, and we thank Delta for accommodating our meeting on relatively short notice. We also would like to thank CCTV, who, as I said previously, is live streaming our event, for helping us with that and also recording our meeting this year. At this meeting each year, we also report on the club's accomplishments and important developments. In 2023, the club continued to have a strong membership base, with new members joining and members continuing to renew. Thanks to your support through memberships and 251 Club merchandise purchases, and your attendance here today at the annual meeting, the club is in a strong financial position to continue to grow and provide value to our members. We also continued our new tradition of hosting a spring get-together, with last year's event being at Hildene, the Lincoln family home. We had around 100 members join us last May, and in your winter 2024 newsletter, we will be announcing where our spring 2024 get-together will be. But we definitely plan to continue that tradition as well. So with all of that being said, I'd like to thank all of you again for being here today. And I also would like to recognize and thank our board of directors, who, if you are in this room, if you don't mind standing up, our board of directors members. I'd like to thank all of our board members for their continuous support and their hard work on behalf of the club. So I am now pleased to introduce our keynote speaker, Barbara Ann Cochran. Over the past few years, we've been lucky to hear from some wonderful guest speakers. Those speakers have represented different regions of Vermont and different aspects of our history. And now today, we are excited to have Barbara Ann as our guest speaker. Cochran's in Richmond has been an innovator in establishing a nonprofit ski area to help anyone who wants to learn to ski afford to do so. The Olympic accomplishments of their family, including Barbara Ann and her son Ryan, have put Vermont skiing on the international radar and encouraged countless Vermonters and out-of-state visitors, children and adults, to ski the East. After Barbara Ann speaks, I think we would do some Q&A. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to Barbara Ann and thank her again for being here with us today.
Thank you. Yeah, I need to probably lower it a little bit. Well, I'm delighted to be here. Can everybody hear me? I can't tell if this is going out. Okay, good. So I have an announcement to make, and then I have a confession to make before I really get started here. My announcement is that I just completed a book that I'm so proud of. I started it over a dozen years ago, and then got about 3/4 of the way through and never finished it. And last fall, beginning of the winter, I was able to meet my producer, and so with a lot of encouragement on her part, then I was able to actually complete it. So if anybody is interested in finding out when it's going to be published, hopefully it's going to be published, the publishing date is like November 4th. The book is called Hike the Course, A Journey of Family, Passion, and I always forget the last part of that. Sorry. But anyway, if you want more information, there's a QR code here that you can take a picture on your phone, and then you'll fill out a form, and then I'll let you know like when it is published and when how you can order it. So I'll get that can get passed around. So my confession is I really wanted to show a lot of family pictures and stuff, but that was going to take some technology. I thought, I'll just do it on PowerPoint. That'll be easy. And then, but I have pictures like on the wall that I was going to take pictures of, and I didn't know how to get the pictures. I could take the picture on my phone, but then I didn't know how to get it onto my computer to be able to put it in PowerPoint. So my confession is that I don't have any pictures to go along with the stories that I'll be telling you. But I do want to say how delighted I am to be here. And just out of curiosity, how many of you have actually been to Cochran's? How many of you have skied at Cochran's or snowboarded at Cochran's? Wow, nice. How about biking? How many of you have been there for the biking? Awesome. All right. Yeah, Cochran's it's a really special place to me. So it's kind of where I grew up. But I'm going to give you a little bit of the history of Cochran's and how it got started and that kind of stuff. So it's The first thing I'm going to share with you goes way, way back to 1923. And in 1923, that was the year that my dad was born. When my dad was born, his name was actually Gordon Timothy Sullivan. It wasn't Cochran. So it could have been Sullivan's instead of Cochran's. But anyway, what happened was that my grandfather Sullivan had been in World War I and had been exposed to mustard gas. And he had been married before he married my grandmother. And the Sullivans were Irish Catholics. My grandmother was Scottish Protestant. And back in 1922, when they got married, that was not acceptable by the Sullivans. So the Sullivans never really embraced my grandmother's side of the family. But what also happened is that my grandfather Sullivan, with his first wife, had a son named Neil. So my dad had a half-brother named Neil. And when Grandpa Sullivan, when Neil was like 3 years old, he was born in 1920, when he was 3 years old, my grandfather, or 4 years old, I guess, because when my dad was a year old, then my grandfather Sullivan got sick and actually passed away. So my dad never knew his own father. He did share with me one time that he had wished that he had gotten to know his father, his biological father. And but Grammy wanted to raise Neil and Dad together, but the Sullivans didn't really recognize her as part of the family, so they took Neil back and raised Neil, while Grammy was a single mom to my dad for many years until Dad was in, I think, probably junior high school. And then she met the grandfather that we knew, who was Grandpa Cochran, and he actually, when he was 17, he came to this country as a shipbuilder from Scotland. So he had a Scottish brogue. We loved Grandpa Cochran. and anyway, and he adopted my dad. So that's where Cochran came to be, was that. So moving on to many years later, after World War II, Dad was in World War II, fought in World War II, and then went back to UVM. He had started at UVM, but went back after the war and met my mother. And they met because my mom had a friend that wanted to go skiing at Stowe, and she said, go ask Mickey Cochran if he'll give us a ride to Stowe. And so she did. She went and asked Dad if they could get a ride to Stowe. And Dad was perfectly happy in giving him a ride to Stowe because he loved to go skiing too. And back then, it's I don't think they paid for lift tickets, because what the deal was is that if you went and you sidestepped up the hill to pack the trails, then you could ski for the rest of the day or get a lift ticket to ski. So Dad provided the ride for them, but they both ended up going skiing. And skiing obviously was a very important part of our lives growing up. I have no idea how my dad learned how to ski. I have no idea how my mom learned how to ski, but when they met in college, they both already knew how to ski. So my mom was from the Windsor area, and from Burlington to go down to Windsor, they would take Route 2. And then as they went through Richmond, Dad said when he would drive, this was late 40s, I think they graduated in 1950, so late 40s, 1950. Dad said that as he was driving through Richmond, he would look across the river over on the hillside over there and say, that would make a nice little ski area someday. Never dreaming that eventually that property would come up for sale and he would buy it. They would buy it. So he had been a school teacher in Windsor, at Windsor High School, and actually there's a student of his that is here tonight. He was telling me that he had Dad for algebra when he was at Windsor High School. So, but anyway, on a teacher salary, there were 4 kids, my mom and dad, and just could not make it on a teacher salary. So Dad started to look for another job to use his engineering background, and had a interview scheduled for Boeing out in Seattle, Washington. I remember them talking about, taking this trip across country and going out to Washington, but I have an uncle that was working at GE in Burlington, and he said, Mickey, I'm pretty sure they're looking for engineers here in Burlington. Why don't you see if you can get an interview? So he got an interview there and got a job. So that's how we ended up staying in the East. We didn't move out to Washington. And but we moved from Cornish, New Hampshire, moved up to South Burlington, lived on McIntosh Avenue for 2 years. But living in the suburbs like that was not the most favorite part of the family story. That nature and being outside and just having land. And the dream that my dad had was to put a rope tow in the backyard. So they started looking for land. I remember going around and looking at various houses. There was actually a house in Underhill that I thought was pretty interesting because it came with a horse. but didn't have a hill in the backyard, so that wasn't okay. We didn't get that one. But then they came to Richmond and looked at the property. It was about 100 acres, and it had a hill in the back. The hill faced northwest, was perfect for skiing and holding the snow. So in 1960, my parents bought the property. They bought it in the middle of September, but school had already started, and we were all in school. I was in the 4th grade. My brother was in 3rd grade. My younger sister was in 2nd grade, and my older sister was in 5th grade. So my mom talked to the principal, and she drove us for the first 2 weeks of school. She would drive us from South Burlington to Richmond and then go back and pick us up after school so that we didn't have to switch schools after the first 2 weeks of school. But anyway, so we moved to Richmond in the middle of September of 1960, and Dad got right on top of his dream. He started to cut down trees. We carried a lot of brush. We had big brush piles. And so because most of that property, that hillside, was actually a lot of trees. They probably, I'm guessing, it's so far back I don't remember too well, but I don't think they were huge trees. I think they were probably a new growth. But anyway, he had certainly one trail, probably a couple trails for us to start skiing on, and then got a tractor motor, put poles up for the pulleys, and got the rope, and by February of 1961, he had the rope tow put together. So that was Cochran's at the beginning. Cochran's was the hill right behind the house, and it was there wasn't a lodge per se. The lodge actually where kids went to get warmed up was in our kitchen. And there was one day, I remember Mom had made a pan of brownies, and she had left them cooling on the counter. And there were 2 boys that went in, and it was just, the smell was so good. They couldn't resist. They thought, well, just take 1 brownie each. So they had a sample of brownie, and then they couldn't stop. So when we got back in, it was supposed to be for dessert for our dinner, but when we got back in, the pan was empty. So, but anyway, So that was one story. And I do remember, I'm pretty sure, I wish there were people here that could verify this for me, but what I remember is that when people wanted to ski at Cochrane's, it was always public, it was never private, but mom and dad would charge a quarter to be able to ride the tow. The other thing I remember is that, and I almost think it was that first year, sometime in February, when there was a young couple, they were probably in their early 20s, that came to ski at Cochrane's, and they wanted to know if they could get a lesson. We didn't have a ski school or anything. So Dad just kind of looked around at us and said, "Is there anybody that wants to teach?" And so I said, I think I was either 10 or 11 at the time. I said, "I will." So I remember going and trying to teach this couple how to do a snowplow. And I said, "You got to get all your weight on your outside ski, on your downhill ski." And I could see that they were trying to do it, really trying, but they had their upper body over their uphill ski, so they really weren't getting that carve. So finally, I was really frustrated, and I just went to Dad. I said, "Dad, I keep telling them, get your weight on your outside ski." And but I said, "I can see they're trying to do it, but they're just not getting it." And he said, "Well, sometimes you have to say the same thing, but use different words." So I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, instead of telling them to get all their weight on their outside ski or the downhill ski, why don't you tell them to get all their weight off of their uphill ski?" So I did that, and it was like magic. It was unbelievable. They got it. So that was like really exciting. And that was a lesson that I learned, throughout my whole life, is that when I'm talking to somebody, if they don't understand what I'm trying to tell them, then I have to think of how to say it. Say the same thing, but just use different words for that. What a lesson. That was awesome. I'm not sure exactly when it was, but I know Mom and Dad bought more land, and that's where the ski area is now. One other story about when we first moved there, and again, I don't remember if it was that next year that he thought, well, he'd just expand the area a little bit more and go up above a little bit. But I do remember the story that he was actually out cutting down trees where the Mighty Mite is now, if you've ever been to Cochrane's. And there was somebody that came up to him and said, "Mr. Cochrane, do you realize this isn't your property?" And he didn't, obviously. He thought it was his. So he found out where the lines were. And after that, they were able to buy some more acreage, and that's where the ski area is now. The rope tow behind the house is no longer there, no longer running. The trails are still there, but and it does get mowed, but the rope tow isn't there. So now we have the rope tow, a Mighty Mite, which is it's a cable lift that's a little bit like a rope tow, except it has handles on it that you can use, and that's our beginner area. And then we also have a T-bar. It's like amazing. Even Dad passed away in 1999, and Mom passed away in 2004 or 2005. And since they've passed away, the changes that have gone on at Cochrane's is unbelievable. I think Mom and Dad looking down would be so pleased with what's happening today. It's like, and their mission, they wanted to make sure that if people wanted to come and ski, and eventually even snowboard, that the mission at Cochrane's is to make sure that anybody who wants to come and enjoy it can. So cost was not supposed to be something that would prevent them from doing that. And Cochrane's, like my nephew Jimmy, who's Bobby's son, has been the general manager for the last, I don't know how long. I don't know if it's been 10 years. I mean, time flies. But anyway, when he first started there, one of the things he felt was like, I think what we have to do is we have to lower our prices. And so a season pass for a family was $395 at that point, and then it would go up on December 1st, it would go up another $100. But he said, I just don't think that's going to work. So he decided to lower it to $295 no matter when you bought it. It's like, so December 1st would come and go and it didn't matter. And what he found was that more people could actually afford $295, and it's for the whole family. It's not like for the first adult and then you have to pay that again for the second adult. It's for the whole family. And if there's grandparents that want to be on that ticket, then we add them too. So we try and keep it very, very reasonable. And I just, I feel such a connection to my dad, where I just feel his joy of having people come and love skiing at Cochran's. I don't know how much he felt about the snowboarding, but but anyway, but just, and my mom too. My mom, she would teach people how to ski. She was running the ski school forever, and but her rule was you had to be 6 years old to be in the ski school, to take lessons at the ski school. So one year, Howard Dean brought his 2 kids to learn how to ski, and Mom thought maybe the younger one really wasn't 6. So she asked Howard how old he was, and he said he's 6. And so when she got Paul out onto the slopes, she asked Paul how old he was, and he said 5. So, but anyway, and the other part of that was that I think Howard was really nervous that his kids would act out a little bit, and so what he said was, he was just hovering and trying to make sure that they were behaving and that they'd listen to my mom as she was giving him a lesson and stuff. And my mom she got tired of it, and she looked up at him, and she told the governor to buzz off. My mom did not mince words. So, and anyway, so he went off and came back, and his kids learned how to ski in that lesson. So it's amazing how quickly that can happen. Right now, what we've added no more lifts. We're hoping eventually to go up on the ridge so that we can get longer runs. But one of the things that my nephew decided was that the T-bar was too short. So one of his first projects was to actually add length, like bring it down lower and go up higher. So it is a little bit longer than it was when my dad put it in. And that was like a game changer. It's like all the decisions that Jimmy's made have been game changers. It's like they worked on the race trail, and when I skied on that for the first time, they blasted some rocks out and stuff, and I went, oh my goodness, this is my favorite. And then when they lengthened the T-bar, I was going, oh, I love this is my favorite. And then another idea that Jimmy had was that he felt like we didn't really have a beginner trail off of the top, so he felt like we needed to have a beginner trail, so he put that in. And then when I skied on that, I was going, oh, this is my favorite trail. So a lot of it seems like there's always a project that gets done over the summer that just keeps improving Cochran's. And like I do think that Howard Dean at one point said that Cochran's was a state of Vermont treasure. And I truly believe that too. I've heard other people talk about it being magical. There's even one dad that his kids learned to ski in the Ski Tots program, which is a program where we teach the parent how to teach their how to ski, their 3 to 5 year old how to ski. And he said, I mean, his kids are in their 20s now, but But he says when he drives up to the upper parking lot and the area unfolds in front of him, he goes, Prozac Mountain. So, and right now we're a nonprofit. We became a nonprofit. Like when Dad was getting sick and we knew his time was limited, people in the community were saying, what can we do to keep Cochran's going? And so what was decided, the best way to do it, to take it from like a mom and pop organization with mom and dad at the helm to see if we could become a nonprofit and be run by a board of directors. And so that's what it is now. We have a board of directors, and then Jimmy is the general manager. We do have a mountain manager, and then we have someone that does the social media stuff. And then we have others, those are the 3 salaried people, and then we have others, obviously, the lift attendants, kitchen help, that get paid on an hourly basis. We do have a ski school. I ran it for many, many years after my mom, and I officially retired as of last year. So last year I wasn't running the ski school, which was awesome. I love being the ski school director, but it just got to be too much for me to try and be over there every day. So the joke between Jimmy and I, by the like as we got into March was that, there's you think you can make it? We got like 2-3 weeks left. So, but anyway, so we have programs. We have programs that we don't charge anything for Boys and Girls Club. We have King Street Youth Center comes and we don't charge them. We have after-school programs that are very, very inexpensive for people. One of the things that we try and do is 10% of the sales of the season passes for the families. I don't remember how many we're up to now, but I know when we first started with a nonprofit, it was about 75 families would buy season passes. Now I think we're up over 300. It might even be more than that. But anyway, so there's 10% of whatever that number is. We try and give out season passes for people that know it. So we don't turn anybody away. If anybody wants to come and really can't afford it, then they just have to talk to Jimmy and say, can you help us out? And usually they say, why don't I just give you a pass? So anyway, I'd love to take questions and see if I can answer your questions, if you have any questions for me. Yes?
How many students or family members went on to Olympic fame?
Well, not all of them were ski racers. Can I count them too? Okay. So in the family, there's 6 of us. There's 4 in my generation, myself, my brother, and my 2 sisters. We're all Olympians. And then in the next generation, Jimmy and my son Ryan are Olympians. But then outside of that, we've had someone that grew up skiing there, Leah Davison, who is she's a 2-time Olympian in mountain biking. And then there's others that have, like there was another Olympian free skier that skied at Cochran's. I don't think she was ever part of the ski club, but she was in the Olympics, this past Olympics, as a free skier. We've had another cross-country skier that started out as an alpine skier and went through the ski club, and but she was on the Olympic team as a cross-country skier. And then there's also like other, when they're not the alpine skiers, I'm not as familiar with them, but we've had others that have learned to ski there. Like Ann Battelle was another, I think she was a free skier. Anyway, she was an Olympian. So I don't know if I'm leaving anybody out, but we've had a few. Yeah. What?
I'll take more questions.
Yeah, I'll take more questions. Yeah.
You snowmaking. I think you've installed snowmaking. Can you talk a little bit about the impact and the future?
Yes, the snowmaking has been incredible. When my mom passed away, one of the things, like Dad actually, I think it was around 1980, maybe 1981 or around in there, he knew that we needed to have snowmaking. So he designed his own system, and he tried to capture water that was on the hill, and then use that to make snow. And he developed his own gun, and he figured, like, he experimented to see if he put water into the gun and then mixed it with air going into the gun, would it make snow? And he was really pleased that it did. So he started way back then. But my parents, with that snowmaking system, would like be exhausted in the winter. They would go up to the lodge and they'd be running the snowmaking overnight, and it would make like maybe an inch on the Mighty Mite, and it was like, so it was beautiful snow. It's actually, of all the snowmaking that I've ever skied on, that was the best, but it also was the most inefficient. So now, when my mom passed away, we knew we had to get a better system. And so now we actually draw the water from the river, and we have the HKD snow guns, those really tower guns that work really well to make snow. And the first trail first two trails that get snow is the Beginner Hill, the Mighty Mite Hill, and I-89, which they'll make snow from top to bottom. It's about like 5 feet of snow, and so it's really, really good. It's we have to get the weather to cooperate, and sometimes that's a struggle. But Jimmy and Corey know what to do to make snow, and so it's unbelievable. We've had people coming from other places, like other racers that will come and train there, and they say the conditions here are the best that they've been skiing on any place. So, maybe I'm a little bit biased, I don't know, but but I think the snowmaking system has made a huge difference. I know there was one year that I was thinking, without our snowmaking, we probably couldn't have run that year. That some years have been really a struggle to get snow without the snowmaking that we've got. So yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And it's really, other ski areas have been wonderful in helping us out and making sure that we have the ability to do that. So, yes.
What's the elevation like compared to Stowe?
We're low. To be honest, I'm not good with elevation. I think the house sits at 300 feet, and then it goes up from there, but I am not good with the numbers like that. So, but we're low. We are low. Yeah.
I'm sure that many of us have followed your career. Could you give us a little bit of history of the progress up to the Olympics?
Sure. Yeah. So, one of the reasons that Dad wanted to build the rope tow in the backyard was because we had all started skiing by then. We learned to ski at Mount Escutney when we were down in Cornish, New Hampshire. And when we moved to Vermont, and I think Dad was actually instrumental in starting something called the Northern Vermont Council. And by that time, we were, adolescents, and we had started racing. And he, being an athlete himself, he knew that just training on weekends wasn't enough, so that was his dream, to put up a rope tow in the backyard. So he did that, and then as we were able to start training became important to us, to be able to train after school And in junior high and high school, we'd come home. Dad had put lights on the back of the house and then 1 or 2 poles on the hill so that we could ski actually at night too. And then like in junior high and high school, every Tuesday and Thursday nights, our friends from all different clubs would come and train with us, and on the hill right behind the house on the rope tow there. And we'd come home, we'd do our homework, we'd have dinner, and then we'd go out on the hill, probably about 6:30 or so, and ski until like 9:30, 10 o'clock or something like that. And it was a blast. It was so much fun. It didn't feel like it was training. It was skiing. But one of the stories goes is that when Lindy was a freshman, so we were one year right after the other. So Lindy was a freshman, Bobby was a sophomore, I was a junior, and Marilyn was a senior. And Lindy came home and she said she didn't want to ski race anymore. And we went, oh, you got to tell Dad. How are you going to tell Dad? But she told him, and he accepted it. She wanted to play basketball with her friends. But she would still go out and ski with us on Tuesdays and Thursdays. She just wouldn't train. She just wouldn't run the gates. And so Dad, he was like, the psychology that he used was amazing to me. And what he did was he noticed that she would always go over and ski on the far side of where we were skiing. And so he went out early one night and set a course where she would run into it. And so he said he watched her when we all came out and started skiing. He was watching her, and he said she skied down and then she stopped because she saw the course, and she stood there and looked at it for a little bit. Then she ran it, and after that, she was back to being a ski racer. But so anyway, when I was a freshman, Bobby was in 8th grade, Marilyn was a sophomore in high school, we all made the state team to go to Easterns, and we made the Eastern team to go to junior nationals. So that was basically like all the kids basically in high school, that age, raced from across country and raced at junior nationals. Dad, they picked to be the coach, which was awesome because I love my dad as a coach. And so we went out. And to be honest, like, I was pretty sheltered. I don't think I'd ever been west of Vermont. I'd been to Maine because my grandparents lived in Maine, lived in New Hampshire, but I think those are the 3 states that I was familiar with. So I'd never flown on a plane. I'd never, so going out to Colorado, it was Winter Park, Colorado, and we raced at junior nationals, and I ended up winning the giant slalom. Marilyn won the slalom, and then another Easterner, Erica Skinger, won the downhill. So that kind of put us on the map for the U.S. team. But in order to be on the U.S. team, you had to be top 10 in any event. And back then, there were only 3 events. They didn't have Super G. They only had downhill slalom and giant slalom. So I think that the coaches were still trying to figure out the process and the organization of the ski team and stuff. So they decided that there were some juniors that were kind of talented, so they felt that they wanted to add another program. So they added the hopefuls. They called us the hopeful squad. And I do remember the coach like sitting us down at the first winter camp that we had gone to after these junior nationals, and he was saying, he was trying to explain, you're the hopeful squad. And he said, so you're part of the team, but not really. So I was going, oh, okay, whatever that means. But that meant that we could go to train at national camps with a national team, and we rose pretty quickly after that too. So we started racing not only in the East, but nationally at some of the races national, and did well throughout that. And once we did that, then we made the national team. We actually were part of the A team. and then I got to go to Chile to train in Chile in this, what was our summer, but their winter. And then training, like going out to I remember going to Aspen for a condition camp in June, skiing in Bend, Oregon on the glacier in August. But back then there was no snowmaking, so we always had to wait for this natural snow to fall in order to figure out where we were going to go train. But once we made the national team, then by my senior year in high school, I was part of the team that went to Europe to race on the World Cup. But the World Cup was relatively new then too. I think 1967 was the first year of the World Cup. And I think 1966 was when the Winter Park Junior Nationals were. So we were like, the thing that amazes me now is that our family was so much a part of the history of skiing. It's incredible. Oh, never mind. But anyway, yeah, unbelievable how much history is there. So then, by the 1974 was the last year that Marilyn, Bobby, and I raced. We were pretty young, but I felt like back then, I felt like the ski team was actually kind of tired of the Cochrans. Lindy was still young enough that she still raced for another 4 years, but the three of us retired all that year. And one of the things that happened that made it kind of hard too was that that year, Dad was chosen to be the head Alpine director or head Alpine coach, and I was so excited because I just knew what a great coach he was, and I thought, oh, this is awesome that he'll be able to coach all my teammates, and that I felt like it would be good. But some of my teammates, I think, were a little bit nervous about having 4 Cochrans that he was going to be coaching, and could he really be, like treat everybody equally, and really care about all the others and not just his kids, which he could. He definitely did it that way. He wanted to see the best for each individual, not just his kids. But so that was going on. And then there was one of my teammates that was struggling a little bit. She had a lot of promise, but she was starting to struggle a little bit. And I remember her saying something about, she was kind of blaming Dad's coaching. And I just said, I think you need to look at yourself first. And she did not like that. So there was a little bit of tension on the team. And I think she had, I don't know for sure, but I think that she went to the administration and really felt like it would be better if the old coaches came back and not be under the direction of Dad. And at the same time, what happened was that it was really tough on my mom because she was trying to run the ski area by herself. And what happened was that it was in January, early January, she was listening to the radio. And on the radio, there was a story that came over that said there was 5 members of an American family that were killed in an airplane crash in Italy, and she knew. She knew it was us. We weren't in Italy, we were in Germany at the time, so, but she was convinced. So she had a nervous breakdown, physical breakdown. She was hospitalized. We went to bed, we were in Vermont, Germany, Marilyn, Lindy, and I. I don't know where the boys were, but anyway, we went to bed one night, everything was normal. We got up and the next day, Dad wasn't there. We were going, where's Dad? And nobody knew. And he did tell the coach that he was rooming with what had happened and that he had to go back to the States. But I think he was just so, sleepy, and he didn't even recall that Dad had said that to him. So it was a couple days before we actually found out what had happened. But so that made it kind of tough too. So that was a year that the four of us retired. But then, I went back, finished up school. We were all finishing up school. Bob went to med school, became a doctor, and then we all started getting married and having kids. And so then we were, back at Cochrane's with our kids and teaching them how to ski and having them race. Some of them, like my daughter was a snowboarder for a little bit because she kind of rebelled against the skiing part of it. But she was also a good ski racer. But I say, okay, between her and Ryan's still racing. He's 31. He's still racing. He's the one that was at the Olympics and won the silver medal at the Olympics, the last Olympics. And but I say the difference between Ryan and Caitlin is like, I think Caitlin would have loved the culture of the U.S. ski team as far as like the uniforms that they'd get, the travel that they'd have, but I don't think she was really into the ski racing part of it so much. Whereas Ryan's like very passionate about the ski racing. And I think that one of the things that happened with Caitlin is that she felt like she wasn't ever really good enough to be a Cochrane. So I think that was kind of a sad thing for her, but which I did not believe that. I felt if she wanted to race and if she put her heart into it, she could have made the U.S. ski team in my estimation, but I'm her mom too, so. Anyway, yeah.
Barb, tell us about when you won the gold medal in Sapporo.
Okay.
Did you bring it?
At one point this morning I was going, I got to remember and bring my gold medal, but I forgot. But anyway, so 1972, Marilyn, Bobby, and I were on the Olympic team and went to Japan, Sapporo, Japan, to race at the Olympics. And like there's things that, like, one of the things that happened is that, and I talk about this in my book, is that I never knew what affirmations were. I use them with the kids the athletes that I'm coaching now. I use it a lot with them. But an affirmation is just a statement that is positive, and there's three parts to it. It has to be first person, present tense, and positive, because of the way the subconscious mind works. And the subconscious mind can't tell a difference between what's real and what's imagined. So one of the things that happened in 1971, like the spring, summer, and fall of 1971, was that we were getting a lot of questions as to whether or not, how do you think the U.S. ski team's going to do at the Olympics? And I'd say, we got a lot of talent on our team. I think we could do very well. I think we could win medals at the Olympics. And then the reporters would say, well, come on, let's be realistic. So they'd say, well, how do you think you're going to do? And I'd say, well, I don't know if I'm going to win at the Olympics, but what I do know is that I'm capable of winning. And so I told that like every time I was asked that question, that was my response. And so I think for me, when I went to the Olympics, that I was better prepared mentally for those Olympics than any other race I'd ever been in. And the other thing that happened at those Olympics was that for the slalom, I drew number 1. And number 1 was my favorite number to race. I just had this thing that it had happened before in a spring series that I drew number 1 5 times in a giant slalom, which giant slalom wasn't my best event, slalom was my best event. But in those 5 giant slaloms, I won every single time. So once I did that, I was going, number 1. I want to get number 1. And in the World Cup, I drew number 1 other time in Maribor, Yugoslavia, and I won that. So I was very convinced that if I drew number 1, I didn't even plan on it because it's so random. It's like it didn't happen very often. But when I drew number 1 for the slalom, my coach even called and said, you've got number 1. So it was like very exciting that I was number 1. And I think I was just in a really good place. I knew I was capable of winning. And so the first run, I just felt like, okay, just do the best that you can. So I got up. I was the first one after the forerunners. I was the first one out of the gate. And they had this clock. It was a white clock with one black slash on it and only one hand on it. And I was going, how does this work? and so I thought it was going to beep. I thought it was going to go beep, 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 beep. And on the higher beep, then I could go. So I was in the start, was all ready to go, had my clothes planted and everything. And then I heard the beep, but there was only one. And I was going, what's going on here? And I was frantic. I didn't know if I should go or not because I knew that there was a rule in the rule book that said you had to leave 1 second of go, either side of go, because it was not that far removed from hand timing. I knew that it was electric timing. I knew my time would be accurate. I didn't have to worry about that, but I didn't know about whether or not they were still enforcing that rule. And I left. I went, because I just was going, I don't know if I'm supposed to go or not. And then between the start and the first gate, these thoughts flashed through my mind, and I was going, oh, I wonder if I should stop and try and get a restart. And then I was going, no, I can't do that. I gotta go, I gotta run this course. And so I was just focused on running the course. And then when I finished, I felt good. And then I was waiting for the others to come down, and I really was excited because after the first run, I was leading by 3/100ths of a second. Well, 3/100ths of a second is not very long. And so then my mind started switching a little bit and was going, okay, I got another run. And so I was memorizing the course for the second run, and all these thoughts were popping into my mind like, oh, I hope I don't make any mistakes. I hope I can beat those French girls. It's like, what do I have to do to ski as fast this run as I did last time? And what was happening, I could feel my body changing. I could feel getting tenser and tenser and tenser. And so I remember thinking to myself, come on, BA, you got to change how you're thinking, because right now, this is not working. And so I did. I had 4 thoughts that I changed to. The first one was, just do your best. Put your best effort into it. That's all you can ask of yourself. So that was my first thought. My second thought was, you know what? If those French girls can win, I can too. And my third thought was something that my dad had told me 2 years prior to that at the World Championships, when I was getting really nervous for the second run. And I went up to him. He was at the top of the hill. And I said, Dad, I'm just really nervous for the second run. And he was just so calming. He just said, I always thought you were the cool cucumber in the family. And I went, oh yeah, I am. So that's what I thought about. That was my third thought. I'm the cool cucumber in the family. And then the fourth thought was, you know what? Even if you don't win this race, you've won the first run of an Olympic slalom race. Not very many people have done that, so you can always be proud of yourself for winning the first run. And once I thought that, the tension left my body. It was like, if I won, so much the better. If I didn't, if something happened and I didn't win, I could live with myself. So it gave me the freedom just to run that second run. And so this time they flipped the order. So the order goes in 15s. So if I ran first, if everybody had finished, I would have run 15th that run. I think that my sister had fallen. I think there were a few others that didn't make the first run. So I probably ran about 12th or so. And when I got to the start was hard for me because I'm short and it was slanted back a little bit. And I wanted to be close to the wand, but I didn't want to be opening it early or anything. So on the second run, I was close to the wand. And what I would do is I'd try and go back as if I was sitting in a chair and then lunge myself out of the start. And what happened was that when I started to go back, I knocked the wand open with my knees. So I started the clock early, And again, I was going, oh God, should I stop? It's like, no, can't stop. And so I just went, just do what I can. And so when I finished that run, everybody that was close to me had already gone down because they were in that pile ahead of me. And Danielle Debernard, who came in second, the first run, 300ths of a second behind me, she beat me that run by 100th, and I beat her by 200. So I actually won the race. But the thing was with Danielle too is that I didn't want to know how anybody else had done, and before I raced, and I'm glad I didn't, because Danielle, when she raced, she had beat everybody up to that point by about a second. That's huge. That's really a big margin in ski racing. And if I had known that, I would have started questioning myself again. I would have lost my confidence. I would have said, oh gosh, what'd she do? How do I go that fast and stuff? But I had no idea. I was just there to do my best, and so it worked out. So, yeah. Thank you so much. You've been a great audience.
Barbara Ann, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I think Governor Dean had it right that Cochran's is absolutely a Vermont treasure, and I think hearing you today, we were all very lucky. You are a great storyteller. I feel like I was there at the Cochran's. I feel like I was there at the Olympics, so thank you so much. We really, really enjoyed having you here today. And I think the paper with Barbara Ann's book that's coming out is circulating through the room too. So if you want to take a scan of that, you can order Barbara Ann's book that's coming out soon. So now, traditionally, we've opened the mic up to hear from members who completed their quest during the year, so 2023. And I know I had a few members reach out to me that they just wanted to share a few stories from completing their quest, and so that we can also congratulate them. So is there anybody who wants to share a memory from their 251 journeys this past year? I think, Bob, if you're here, come on up then. Thank you so much.
Although my wife and I have been in Vermont for decades, we learned about the 251 Club only a few years ago from our dear friends, Fran and Ralph Lancaster, who are here with us today. We thank them. We are thrilled, but also sadly nostalgic and sorry, to have finished the Vermont 251 Challenge. It took us almost 3 years between 2020 and this August 2023. Being retired has certainly helped us find the time for this project. For those who think Vermont is a tiny state, well, you're technically correct, of course, but try visiting all the towns, cities, villages, and gores and see if you still agree at the end. We went to college in Vermont, go Panthers, and have lived here for more than 30 years. And have a deep and abiding affection for our brave little state. Our approach for the 251 Challenge was to take a selfie of ourselves in front of each entity's town hall, clerk's office, or other municipal building which had the town's name on it. Once, it was a dump truck to prove that we had been there. I think that was Hyde Park. We printed out tiny pictures of these and pasted them into our journal provided by the 251 organization. We have proof we were in all 255. Admittedly, some corners had to be cut for the gores. Once a picture of our car's GPS was the only proof we had that we had been there, and there were no signs. We chose to make our last town Woodstock, where we lived for almost 30 years, and where I taught Spanish at Woodstock Union High School during that time. We now happily live in White River Junction, but continue to have great affection for Woodstock. We are grateful to have accepted this challenge. Now what? This 251 experience will be impossible to equal. We are so proud, and we have the hats and pictures to prove it. In sum, V is for the verdant valleys of Vermont. E is for the eye-catching views from the hills and mountains of Vermont. R is for the rolling hills and pastures of Vermont. M is for the mountains of Vermont so green and inviting, and also for moonlight in Vermont. O is for the old folks who give character to Vermont. I guess that's us. N, or many of us. N is for the nooks and crannies we found in every town in Vermont. T is for the terrific state that is our brave little state of Vermont. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob, for sharing that with us. Are there any other members? I think there was maybe Stephen wanted to speak. Not sure if he's still here. Oh, come on up. And Carol, right? Stephen.
No, that was Stephen.
Oh, many Stevens. Great. Well, thank you. This is Stephen and Carol. Thank you so much.
Hi. We, just like Bob before us, finished in 3 years. We started in 2020 and ended last Wednesday in Lewis, 2023. Woo. We had such a blast doing this. My husband, Steve, is a native Vermonter, so if we ever went somewhere and he's like, never been on this road before, that was actually a good sign because he saw something that he had never seen before. I'm a transplant from Western Massachusetts, but I have lived here for 35 years. And we both retired in 2019, which is what gave us the time to do all these fun things. So a lot of people say, well, what was your approach? What did you do? So I'm just going to say a couple things, and then Steve's going to tell you our gnarliest story. So we decided not to use any GPS. So we used the DeLorme maps, which it's an atlas, and it supposedly has all of the roads on it. Doesn't always have all of the roads on it. The only printed directions we used were for Lewis because we had tried to go there a year ago, couldn't figure out how to get in. And so we said, we're not going to go through that again. We're going to break our own rule, and we're going to print out directions. And even with the printed directions, we still went the wrong way. But we finally found our way into Lewis and to Lewis Pond. Steve drove 100% of the time. I navigated 100% of the time. And my advice is to write out your itinerary ahead of time, because if you don't do that, then the person who's navigating has their face in a map. So the first couple times we went out, Steve's like, oh, look at the covered bridge. Oh, look at the tree. Look at the white church. Oh, look at this. And I didn't see anything because my head was in the map. So after that, we wrote everything down, and we knew exactly where we were going. And then we could, we had to adjust at times because you can't always trust what DeLorme map says. If a road, even if it says it's a road, an established road, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's an ATV trail. And you have to change your mind and come back. We had dogs with us for 50% of the towns. Not all of them, but so it's interesting when you take a dog, it's a whole different character, and you can't go into museums and you can't do things like that. But then again, you tend to gravitate more towards outdoor things that you can do, and so that's different too. We would find that we would do more indoor things if we were without dogs. With dogs, more outdoors things. So that was fun. So we had, and a couple things of helpful advice was that we always started with gas in the tank, always started with a picnic lunch, and always had water. Because when you follow the DeLorme maps, you're like, oh, we're coming up to a village center. And then you'd be like, where was the village center? There's like nothing there. And so we learned quickly to always have food with us so that we didn't have to waste time trying to find a real road and going to get stuff. So Yeah, so don't trust road conditions and don't trust population centers on the Delorme maps because they're literally nothing there. It's just a little diamond on the map, and then you're off into some other place. So we had a couple of really gnarly adventures, and I'll let Steve choose which one he's gonna tell you about.
Yeah, the first one would be, has anybody been on the vertical mile? Oh.
Oh, you got one taker.
You want? Yeah. So we did it. We were in our GTI at the time, which is a low to the ground car, and the vertical mile had just been graded with rocks that were no less than 2 inches in diameter up to 3 and 4 inches, and we actually literally slid down, and it was like trying just on the brake, let it slide, try to catch it back. The rocks were just all just marbles. It was crazy. So that road is when you come out of Wheelock and you go towards Greensboro. That's a connection there. The other place that was interesting. Does anybody know where the Podunk Wildlife Refuge is? It's really it's called Podunk. Right. So if you come out of Stratford and you want to go to West Fairleigh, which we wanted to do, going east, we went up Pennock Road. Delorme shows the road goes all the way through. We got up to the top of a hill, probably 3 miles up. Road took a hard right. We realized it went to a really nice house. Big lawns. Straight ahead was 2 dirt strips with grass in the middle. And the map said, you can go through. We started through that. We had the Passport this time, 4-wheel drive, and summer tires on. And it's summertime or fall. We start in there, and the next thing I know, we are driving on rock ledges downhill, and I'm hitting bottom. And now we're going through creek beds. Luckily, the car has short, front end and back end, so we didn't hit. So we were going through creek beds. Now we start uphill on rock ledges, and I'm just wondering, I'm hoping the tires don't pop, and they were good tires. I mean, the car, it was a fairly new vehicle. So we get up, and then we kind of come up to this opening, and we look to the right on a tree, and it's snowmobile signs. So at this point, Carol is just having a blast.
True.
She said, "This is the coolest thing we've ever done." So anyway, we keep going, and we stayed out of the ledges, but the center of the road was pretty high. You could hear, even though we had high clearance on this car, we could hear it hitting on the bottom. Finally, I would say a half hour of this, we came out onto a road. And I looked at her, I said, "Do you know how lucky we just were?" I said, "No cell service up there, no nothing. So if you ever you want to make that route across that way, don't do it." So, but that's one of the places where Delorme was wrong. Another one was, again, we had the GTI.
It was in Glover.
And we were trying to come out of Glover and go west. Still Hill Road. Delorme showed it to go all the way through. We drove up for probably three miles up this hill, and all of a sudden, I looked straight ahead, and this was actually before we did Pennock Road and the snowmobile trail. We looked straight ahead, and the grass had to be, there was two dirt strips. The grass had to be 3 feet high in the middle, and there was a driveway that went up, and you go, "Oh no, it's got to be going that. You got to go up the driveway." Go up the driveway in somebody's yard, turn around, came back down. As we're turning around, a 4-wheeler comes out. I tried to get his attention, but he was in a big hurry. But I said, "Now this GTI is not going to go through there." So I don't know where that ended up, but that was again another road that ended up. But
Another ATV trail.
Another ATV trail, yeah. So those are kind of the fun things. One of the funny things is that we tried to spend, we stopped at certain towns, we tried to spend a little bit of time, walk around sometimes. But the last town, Lewis, which is an unincorporated, disorganized town, according to the state of Vermont.
It's truly called a disorganized.
It's in the Silvio Conti Wildlife Management Area, which is huge. The Delorme map and GPS, the road does not exist. It was blocked. So we had to go back, as Carol said earlier. But that, when we got in there, there were signs that were missing. We got going up a road the other day. This is last Wednesday. We were going up a road, and we kept going. It kept getting worse and worse, and full of rocks. Again, we had the four-wheel drive, and so we get up, and next thing I know, we're up in there, and she said, "This can't be it. It can't be." And we said, "Oh, okay, so we'll go as far as we can." So we get up. Next thing you know, there is a washout in the road, and it's covered. They filled it in with logs, different sized logs. And I said, we have a picture of it, but I said, I got out, I studied it, walked on the other side, looked back. Carol took a picture of me looking at it. I said, we could get high-sided on this one, because there was the logs went up like this and down again. It was pretty. So I did a 6-point turn to turn around. We were in bushes scraping the side of the car, the whole works. And we turned around, went back down the road, and looked at a post that's engraved and figured out that has to be the way to Lewis Pond. Lewis is not recognized, the town of Lewis is not recognized on a map. If you want to find it, do Lewis Pond. That's how you're going to find it. So, but we spent the most time in any town on any of the trips, except for the overnight, we spent in Lewis for 5 hours. Because there were so many roads and so many places to stop. They have really nice wheelchair access ramps out into the lake or the pond, and I think we did 3 other ones after that. They're just really neat area. So, and you're up there. So, anyway, I think that's about
it.
That's about what we had for our trip. So, thank you.
Thank you, Steve and Carol. It sounds like you definitely made memories that will last a lifetime, tested your nerves. It sounds like also if anybody is looking for directions to Lewis, that's probably the most common question we get. They should go and talk to Steve and Carol, but thank you so much. Anybody else that wants to share a memory from? Oh, come on up.
Thank you. Chip Taylor from Cabot. I'll be brief. All I can tell you is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think years ago, weren't you supposed to mail a postcard from the local post office to prove you've been in a town?
Some members did that, but not all.
Yeah. So that kind of slowed me up. Let's just say this. It helps if you're born out of state to have maternal grandparents in Londonderry, because I'm sure I hit a few towns in Vermont when I was a month old. So that takes care of that. Then you get a little older and you summer in Vermont. So naturally, you're with your grandparents, but you have to go to Rutland to shop, you go to Bennington, you go to Brattleboro. So I'm checking off towns. Then you have a sports car and you're dating girls, and some of them live in obscure towns. So now you're driving to some towns you normally wouldn't go to. And then you have a couple of state jobs, one of which was I was HR manager for state welfare. So now I'm visiting all the welfare districts around. And well, let's take a little different road. Here's a town I've never been to. And then you go to college, and I went to a little hippie college in Plainfield. Won't mention the name. So now you have a car, and you're traveling around, and you're taking students. Oh, can I get a ride to here? Can I get a ride? So now I'm checking off more towns. And then, and I'm dating myself, I had a job with civil defense, now emergency management, doing radiation safety in case that evil empire nuked Vermont. Now, they didn't know where Vermont was, but I'm not making this up. Almost every town in Vermont had a civil defense yellow Geiger counter. And my job was to go around and teach the firefighters and the cops and the selectmen how to use that Geiger counter. And all of a sudden, I'm over 200 towns. Then it got tough. And the only other thing I'll add, and I'll be brief here, the criteria for visiting a town is a little bit loose. You kind of, make it as you go. And I realized about 2 weeks ago, well, I've been through the town of Westford, hitting some other towns, but does rolling the window down and breathing the air as I drive through Westford count? Not in my book. I mean, boots on the ground, I think, is the real criteria. So I had to make a trip a week ago to Westford and actually drive into the town and get out and walk around. And I hope you all do the same thing, because driving isn't quite the same. You miss a lot. Get out, walk around, go to Lewis, take pictures, if you can find it. And I encourage everybody to keep knocking them off until you get to, it's 2:52 right now? Okay, I did it. You can too.
Thank you so much, Trip. Anybody else? If not, then we are moving on to the trivia part. Yes. And I'm going to turn the mic over to board member Hubie Norton, who put together the trivia questions. I know our table is having a lot of fun trying to answer them. So I will turn it over to you, Hubie. Thank you so much.
First of all, understand this is not a contest, okay? There will be points awarded for the correct answers, but the points don't count. So the idea was to take the collective knowledge of the tables and see if you could come up with these answers. And so we'll start with the first one. And I think maybe the easiest way is if you know the answer, like kind of shout it out. The other thing is if you have the correct answer, I want whoever was recording the answer to just raise their hands. We just want to make a quick count to kind of get an idea of the difficulty of the questions, so that if we do this again, we can modify it. Probably have to make it tougher, right? Okay. All right. Number one. What is the highest elevation in Vermont? Is in the town of? Underhill is the correct answer. How many?
Objection, Your Honor.
Look at your Delorme map and you'll see that it is indeed Underhill. Another, if you get extra points, I could have added this one too. What did the highest elevation in Vermont, what towns did it used to be in? Towns. Mansfield is correct. Mansfield is one of them, which no longer exists. And another one is Sterling, which is another town that did not exist. And they got incorporated into Stowe and so on. So anyway, little piece of trivia. Well, we won't be able to use that one another time. But anyway, so what are the 4 Haven towns in Vermont? West Haven, East Haven, Fairhaven, New Haven. That was easy. Oh, look, yeah. All right. Almost every town in Vermont starts with every letter of the alphabet, except there are 4 letters that are not used for the first letter of a town. And what are those 4 letters? QXYZ. That's correct, QXYZ. Did anybody say? So how many had that one correct? How many had? We had a lot with that one. That was pretty easy. That was pretty easy. QXYZ. Excuse me? What about Queechee? What about Queechee? There you go. It's part of Hartford. Queechee's part. Next one. Name the 2 towns in Vermont that begin with the letter O. Orange and Orwell. Who said Orleans? Orleans is a village within the town of Barton. A lot of moans there. So how many had that one? How many had that one correct? Yeah, okay, good. Let's not get our towns and villages mixed up, okay? One of those B towns, Brunswick. Brunswick is just south of what town?
Ferdinand?
That's close. Ferdinand is what? Bloomfield. Bloomfield is the correct answer. Yeah. How many had Bloomfield? Bloomfield. How many know where Bloomfield is? way up there. So we tried to make these questions regional. All right, so this is a little hint here, because we've been kind of in the northern part of the state here a little bit. You're heading south and you just passed a little round brick schoolhouse. On your right, you're in what town? Brookline. Brookline is correct. How many had Brookline? That's a little tougher one, yeah? Brookline's not a big place, but it does have that very unique round brick schoolhouse. Next one, there used to be more than 60 gores in Vermont. Is that true or false? True. It's true. Gores, as you know, like Buell's gore, is a triangle, and that's been explained as it's a surveying problem, a closure. With the surveying methods and so on, when they would survey towns, sometimes they would come up with these little slivers of triangles that didn't close the boundary. So, some of them might have been, a lot of the towns in Vermont are 6 miles square, so they might have been 2 legs that were 6 miles long, and one leg maybe only 100 feet or something like that. So all of these gores ended up getting incorporated into adjacent towns over time, but the bigger ones like Buell's gore and Avery's gore, they continued to stay as gores. So, that was Wentworth. Who is it? Wentworth? That was the Whitlaw. Whitlaw was the Surveyor General of Vermont. And he said the difficulty was trying to lay squares on a sphere. Vermont has nearly 300 roadside historic markers. Oh, did I skip a question? Oh, yes. Oh, so somebody's excited to answer this question correctly. The Vermont town of Albany was first called what? New Albany? No. This is a tough one. I have to admit, this is a tough one. I'm hoping that somebody from Albany might be here. No, it's Lutherloh. It's Lutterloh. And it was named after a Colonel Henry Lutherloh, and he was a deputy quartermaster for George Washington in the Continental Army, and he was the first signature on the charter. So Lutherloh, Lutterloh. Okay, so how many got that right? We'll mark that one down. It's difficult. This one should be easy, I think. Well, maybe not. Vermont has nearly 300 roadside historic markers. The Nahala, and I'm not sure how exactly I pronounce that, Nalaka, Vermont roadside historic marker was one of the first one placed in 1949 and is located in the town of? Brattleboro is correct. You get extra points. But that's right. You get extra points if you said Dummerston. Okay? Because it's not located in Dummerston. But the marker is for Robert Kipling's house, which was called, it's Naulahka, Nahalka, and that means jewel beyond price. So his house was actually in Dummerston. And thank you, John, for pointing that out to me. Longest river in Vermont without a dam. Oh, the Clyde, my God, that's got so many dams on it. Of course, they're tearing them out, but they're taking some, but there's still one big one up there on Clyde Pond there, right? So, It's not the, who said White River? White River is correct. Good. Good response there. 3 bodies of water that Vermont shares with Canada. Let's take them easy ones. What? Lake Champlain, then from Magog, Wallace Pond. How come? How many had Wallace Pond? Yeah, okay. Great little pond up there in Canaan. Border goes right through the middle of it. There are 2 silver lakes in Vermont. One in Barnard has a state, the one in Barnard has a state park, Vermont State Park on it, and the other one has a primitive campground and is where? And I know somebody knows the answer to this one. Boy, you're circling it. I'm hearing Brandon, Salisbury. It's Goshen. It's Goshen. How many had Goshen? Yeah. It's a lake that's up above Lake Dunmore. It's up on the mountain above Lake Dunmore. It's a great little place. You have to hike into it and so on. They do have a. It's in the national forest. So you have to bring. You can go camping up there. And they actually, I think they have a cabin there now. Now, I have to admit, here's an opportunity for extra credit. Okay? You know how those people that got the grade point average of 4.2, how can you do that? You know, it's like, wait a minute, how can you get more than perfect? Anyway, here's a chance. There's a 3rd Silver Lake in Vermont. Georgia. Actually, yes, it's split between, I saw you're from Fairfax. It's split between Georgia and Fairfax. Yeah. Extra credit. 4.2. Vermont Route 30 and Vermont Route 100 have 2 intersections in this town. I'm hearing Londonderry. It's Jamaica. Yeah. Route 30 angles down from Middlebury to Brattleboro. Route 100, of course, goes up the spine, and they actually come together and share the same highway for a section there through Jamaica. Town of Rockingham, here we go, villages again, all right? Town of Rockingham has 2 villages. What are they? Bellows Falls and Saxons River, yeah. So you hear people say, did you get to the town of Bellows Falls? Well, no, I didn't, but I got to the village of Bellows Falls, right? Place names. Now, I heard someone talking earlier about a place name. And so there are a lot of place names in Vermont. So if you're in Mosquitoville, what town are you in? I heard Peacham. That's close. Barnett. Barnett, just south of Harvey's Lake in the town of Barnett. Yeah. Mosquitoville. How'd you like that on your address? I live in Mosquitoville. Yeah. Come visit. What is the name of the municipality on the north border of Grand Isle? North Hero. But, you know, Isle Lamont might not be a bad answer. I'll have to look at the map on that, because you might be correct. It's west, but it could be northwest. We'll have to, yeah. But maybe there's an opportunity for extra credit there, too. That was a trick question. We...
Is it North Hero on the island of Grand Isle?
No, you have to go across the drawbridge to get to North Hero. Once you cross the drawbridge, you're in North Hero. The new drawbridge, the $25 million drawbridge. You're in the town of Warren. You're going south on Route 100. What's the first town you enter? Granville. Well, must be a lot of Addison County people here. Yeah, Granville. Granville in Addison County. Yep. Largest body of water entirely within the state of Vermont. Lake Bomazeen is incorrect. Is incorrect. It's the Harmon Reservoir, or sometimes called Lake Whitingham, down south. That's the home of the Glory Hole. You never heard of the Glory Hole? Some people. It's a big dam. It's a big reservoir. They generate power, and this where the water goes down. This huge thing. Pearl S. Buck, Vermont roadside marker, is located in what town? Danby. Must be Pearl S. Buck fans, yes. And last but not least, what is the smallest town in Vermont? Not a city, a village, or a Gore or Grant, but by area. What is the smallest town? It's right here in Chittenden County. St. George is correct. Winooski's a city, okay? St. George. So now we're going to award the points. But points don't count. So give yourself a hand.
Thank you, Huey, for putting that together for everybody. It sounds like everybody had a great time with that, so maybe we can make this a new tradition of the annual meeting, a little bit of trivia, especially if Huey is on board with putting together the questions. So thank you so much, Huey. So our last item now is the raffle prizes. So we want to thank the businesses that donated the raffle items as well as members. And I also wanted to thank Vermont Magazine for donating magazines for all of you as you came in to take a look at it. And we will also be listing all of the donors in the winter 2024 newsletter as well. But I'm going to call up 2 additional board members to do the drawing, Erica and Shauna, if you'd like to come up here. Oh, and one other note, if you are present, please just make sure you take the raffle items that you have won so that we don't have to track you down and ship it. So if you win, go ahead in the back and somebody back there will help you take the raffle items. All right, you guys ready? Yes. Okay. Yep, I'm going to dump one at a time. And then here's the list.
No, we need another box to dump the ones after we're done using.
Just put them down there and we'll get them. All right, yeah. Just so we don't have to. And here's the packages too, if you want to read off the packages, the names. There you go.
So wait,
Number one.
Oh, okay. Number 1.
Okay. You want me to say which one it is?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So this is package number 1, Explore Southern Vermont.
Jeanette Williams. Great.
Package number 2, Explore the Northeast Kingdom.
Karen McGovern.
She might be online.
Okay.
Great. Okay, great. Package number 3, Outdoor Recreation in Central Vermont.
Nancy Miller.
And I should add too that for some of these packages, some of the winners might also be live streaming us. We have about around 60 members live streaming our event as well. Okay, is this number 4?
Yes.
Number 4, Ski and Stay at J Peak. Mag, I think. They are here.
Mary Mag.
Yep. There's Roger. Yep. Great. Congratulations. Okay. Number 5, Outdoor Adventures of Lunch and Reading.
Susan Polk.
Back there in the corner. Okay. Number 6, Cross Country Skiing, Lunch and Pie.
Jean McCallum.
I think she's here as well. Okay, great. Congratulations. Number 7, Day in Montpelier with a behind-the-scenes tour.
Chelsea Doobie.
I think she's online. Okay. Number 8, Garden and Kitchen Supplies.
Pamela Taylor.
You want to give me a second? Catch up, Shaw. Number 9, visiting museums in Vermont plus a puzzle and treasure.
Carol Anderson.
Oh, great. Number 10, museum hopping and learn the history of Vermont.
Diane Bouchard.
Number 11, night on the town.
Elizabeth Law.
Number 12, Thunder Road.
Mary Parker.
Okay, and now the next 4 are for, you have to be present to win, so please just let us know that you are here. Number 13, Vermont Country Store gift basket and Grafton cheese. Hamilton,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Is it Barbara Hamilton?
Did we get that right? Yeah.
I didn't want to jump into it.
Okay. Number 14, Barn Owl Bistro gift basket and certificate.
Matt Parson.
Right there.
All right.
Okay, 2 more to go. Number 15, breakfast maple syrup and essential oils.
Dottie Sunquist.
Great. And the last one, thank you, Shauna, an assortment of Italian foods.
Jim Reddy.
Oh. We probably have to draw again. Oh, is he?
Oh. You sure he left?
Has he definitely left the? Oh. Okay, I think we have to.
Okay.
I think we should.
Okay. All right. Stephanie Haas.
Great. Here, I'm gonna put this one here. All right. Great. Thank you, Shauna and Erica. Thank you, and thank you again to all the businesses and members who donated. So that wraps up our 68th annual meeting, and I just want to say once again, this is one of my favorite days of the whole year, is coming here and getting a chance to meet members or see members again that I've gotten to know over the years. So thank you all for being part of the club and for being here, and we will hopefully see you at the spring get-together or next year at our next annual meeting. So thank you, everybody. Thank you guys, sorry. I'm just going to say bye to Barbara. Right, okay.